So my wife recently got into cross-stitching and got into the social gatherings that go around cross-stitching online and in person. And they have a thing called WIPs. WIP stands for Work in Progress. And so they'll have WIP Wednesdays and they'll talk about what they're doing and show off their current works in progress. And they have a thing called a WIP Parade, which is a video listing of all of the projects they have and where they are currently on all of those different projects. It's not uncommon for them to have multiple projects going at the same time. And I thought this was a really neat idea for those of us who are into the automotive project scene. I also have multiple automotive projects at any given time, and it just seemed like a neat thing to do. So, without further ado, here is my WIP Parade.
WIP number 1. This is my wife's 1973 Wagoneer. My wife decided she'd like a Wagoneer, but I didn't want to deal with the 12 to 15 miles per gallon that a Wagoneer gets. They never made a diesel Wagoneer in this country, so I figured I'd build her one. This one is now equipped with a 1984 6.2 diesel upgraded with the turbo from a 93 6.5 diesel. Backing that is a 700 R4 and new Process 205 transfer case. Axles have been upgraded to 1984 Jeep axles, so we'll have front disc brakes. It has a 3-inch body lift to clear the transmission, which will also accommodate larger tires if need be. It will also be getting the older Gladiator-style grille and round headlights. The rough stuff is done, and now it's to the finer assembly details. Plumbing, electrical, paint, and figuring out how to mount the power brake booster and master, and final assembly. But it's not as far away as it seems. WIP number 2. This is a 1950 Studebaker 2R5 pickup. When I was 16, there was a yellow 49 Studebaker pickup with a 440 Mopar under the hood that was for sale. I couldn't close the $200 gap between what he wanted and what I had, so it got away. Also, when I was 16, the person to have build your motor was Bob Cram, and I've never had a motor rebuilt and always wanted one done by him. There's a 440 down at Cram's shop right now being built for this truck. You can see I've got a 727 trans lined up for it and a Ford 9-inch rear end. I'll upgrade the stop front suspension with disc brakes and upgrade the interior a bit. There's a lot left to do on this one. Still have to make all the mounts for the drivetrain, do all the bodywork and paint, electrical and plumbing, but eventually I will have the truck that got away. WIP number 3. This is a 1971 Buick Riviera boat tail. My intent was to buy this, get it running solidly, and drive it with a for sale sign in it until someone bought it. As soon as we pulled up to pick it up, my wife pulled me aside and whispered, "You're not selling this one." I got it running, but the instrument cluster was all plasticky and completely shot. I now have 2 better clusters and can put them in. So, new rubber, new paint, reinstall the chrome, do some seat covers, some mechanical work, get her running again, put the dash back in, and she'll be ready to cruise with that big 455 powering her down the road. Also going to put on some better wheels, tires. There's a lot of work to be done on this one to make it nice. But first thing, get it running again. WIP number 4. Here we have a 1959 Facel-Vega Facellia. Facel-Vega made 1,100 of these worldwide from 1959 to 1964, and only 300 to 400 of them made it to the US. This one is a 1959. The motors in them were junk, and it put the company out of business. When I got this one, it had a Datsun Z motor under the hood. The big brother of this car would have had a big block Chrysler Hemi, so I originally tried to put a small block Mopar in it, but I couldn't get a transmission to fit without spending gobs of money or cutting up the 4-car even further. I don't like cutting, and I don't have gobs of money. When the company went bankrupt, when, not if, you sent it back for motor repair, they'd have replaced it with a Volvo B20, a drop of about 25 horsepower. I didn't have a B20, but I did have a B21 red block, which turned out to easily fit. Wound up with a good deal on a B234 FT turbo red block from a later model Volvo, and it fit nicely too. and it's a 50 horsepower upgrade. Obviously it needs some work yet. I have to wait until my shop is built before I can really do much. It'll need plumbing and electrical, a bit of body work, paint for sure, needs to have a top made, better interior, gauges have to be repaired, need to do something about that transmission tunnel. Some previous owner welded the seats in. As you can imagine, parts are a little difficult to source for this, but when it's all done, it's going to be worth it. What we have here is a 1969 Dodge W200 Crewcab. The big lift kit and massive tires are actually for a practical reason. The tires are 37-inch military Humvee tires, which can be had much more cheaply than smaller off-road tires, but necessitated the 6-inch lift. Axles from a 93 Dodge W250 provided the right gear ratio and upgraded disc brakes. The motor is a 1991.5 5.9 intercooled Cummins turbo diesel. I mounted the radiator behind the core support and the intercooler in front of the core support and dual 3000 CFM electric fans between them. It's backed by a Getrag G360 5-speed, which mates to the original 205 divorce transfer case. This one is almost not a WIP. It's down for a new master cylinder and an upgrade to the proportioning valve, but it is a daily driver. The paint looks like what it was, an old Navy truck. This truck was originally used on the Navy base at China Lake, California. WIP number 6. This is my wife's 1969 Cougar. Almost bone stock, this was a wedding present from a friend of the family to my wife when she and I got married. It came equipped with a 351 Windsor and FMX transmission, only a 2-barrel though. It's been upgraded with power brakes, but still drum all the way around. The first objective at the moment is just to get it running and driving again. It was a daily driver and was parked so I could source and replace the speedometer and some of the rubber weather stripping. My wife wants this to be nice, so I need to reupholster the seats, put in a new headliner, new carpet, and sand and repaint it. Check this out. People don't realize these holes in the center console are actually for storing the seat belts. This was a good running, low mileage, cool pony car, and it needs to get back to being driven again. WIP number 7. This is a 1966 Jeep CJ5. This is the only car I own that is absolutely not for sale at any price, ever. This vehicle has been a part of my life since I was 3 years old. It belonged to a friend of my father's and later my friend, who has since passed. This was the first car I sat behind the wheel of in Dan's lap, the car I learned to drive a trailer with. It took me to camp, to school, to trips in the desert to go rambling. For years I drove it to work, much to the chagrin of those behind me since it's not very fast. It is attached to many, many fond memories, and it makes me very, very sad that I've let it sit so long. Dan bought it when it was a year old. It's been upgraded with a 4-speed truck transmission, has the larger truck V8 radiator, it has an overdrive and M38A1 twin-stick shifters. The safety interlock that prevents the use of low transfer case and 2-wheel drive was removed. This machine has 16 speeds forwards if you want them. It also has a maximum speed of about 60 miles an hour due to the 488:1 rear-end ratio. It has 3 fuel tanks. It was down because the water pump went bad, and because my wife doesn't like riding in it due to the big hole in the floor where the transmission cover used to be. It needs a water pump, carb rebuilt, and a transmission cover built so that my wife will ride in it again and it can get more use. It also needs tires now. And remember, life's too short to drive an ordinary car.